A call came in from an unknown number. Who could it be? Hello? Hello? This is James, your son. It's fine that you divorced my dad, but it's a problem if you don't fulfill your responsibilities as a mother. I mean, I'm already a high school student. Can't you stop involving me in the mess between you two? What? What are you talking about, and why are you calling me? I was just about to say that when James raised his voice. I'm telling you to pay my child support and tuition fee. The root cause of all this is your infidelity. And now you're trying to take money from my dad? You got some nerve. At his words, I felt anger rising in me and replied to James, Who do you think you're talking to? I have no recollection of having a child. What? Have you gone crazy? Or are you trying to avoid paying by playing dumb? Don't mess with me. James must think I'm messing with him, but I'm surprisingly serious. As I said earlier, James is not my child. About 14 years ago, at that time, I was married to my ex-husband and we were about to reach our 3rd year. Up until then, our relationship as a couple hadn't changed much, and I think we got along fairly well. On our days off, we often went out together. With my ex-husband often being busy with work, he was away on business about half the month. He worked in sales, and I knew he traveled a lot even before we got married, so I didn't feel particularly out of place. But the one thing I felt was unnatural was the issue with children. Before we got married, I had told them that I loved children and I wanted to have one as soon as possible. Of course, we both had our own schedules. Even if I was ready, if he wasn't, it wouldn't work. So I wasn't in a rush and was taking my time. But 3 years into our marriage, he had never once brought up the subject of having children. By the time 3 years had passed, I thought it was strange and brought up the subject. What about having a child? It's been 3 years, and the older we get, the higher the risk of giving birth will be. Yeah, but I'm busy with work right now. When will you not be busy? Huh? You always say that, and it's been dragging on until now. I can't help it if I'm busy with work. If you keep saying that, I'm going to start wondering if it's really about work. What do you mean? I haven't done anything wrong. Huh? There was something odd about this conversation. I didn't suspect him of cheating. I was just trying to convey that if this continued, I would have no choice but to suspect him of infidelity. But for some reason, he seems flustered. He's hiding something. Thinking that, I decided to look into my ex-husband's activities, and I was able to uncover the truth behind his words and actions. His attitude when I confronted him that time, and what he was really doing when he said he was on a business trip. It was too mild to be called an affair. Turns out he was leading a double life. Half the month he spent with me, and half the month with another family. But what shocked me most was that the other woman had a child. That child was James, who had called me earlier. James was 2 years old at the time, still unaware of the world around him. Should I call this a blessing in disguise? Either way, someone will certainly get hurt. So I decided to speak to the other woman in the following days. Perhaps she had heard from my ex-husband. She seemed to recognize me right away. My first impression of her wasn't very pleasant. In a tense atmosphere, I quickly got to the point. I spoke about everything that bothered me, such as whether it was okay for my ex-husband to be leading a double life and who was the child's parent. But the woman began to respond nonchalantly, without changing her complexion or showing any guilt. She firmly stated that she was the mother of James. My ex-husband seemed to be hiding it, but she didn't hesitate to answer, which made me feel a bit overpowered. Finally, I asked her what she planned to do in the future. I won't do anything. I have no intention of quitting my current lifestyle, and I'm fine with it. However, I don't think he intends to have any more children. Why is that? When I reported that I was pregnant with James, he didn't seem very happy. When I asked, he said it was not the right time to have a child. So I think I just happened to get pregnant. Otherwise, I don't think he would have any children. But he told me he loves children. Does this mean he didn't want to have children with you? Then she smiled a little and said, Isn't it strange? Why did I, who didn't want children that much, give birth, while you, who want children, didn't even get pregnant? Can you really say that he loves children? Well, I'm sure when he said he loves children, it wasn't a lie, right? Maybe he thought that if he agreed with you about loving children, it would make him more attractive. Maybe he just used it as an excuse to flirt with you. No way. I really wanted to argue back, but I couldn't. Somehow, I felt like my conviction had been shaken. Besides, it seemed that my ex-husband was actually considering the child situation, which didn't appear to be the case before. Considering all this, I began to think that what the mistress was saying might be true. Seeing the woman's confident expression, I couldn't help but feel miserable. A few days later, I filed a divorce petition to the court and conveyed my intention to demand a division of property. He probably heard about me from the mistress. My husband accepted everything without asking me any questions, including our divorce and my claim. In the end, I wondered why this man had married me. That was the only thing I was curious about till the very end. On the day I packed up and left our home, I asked my ex-husband why he married me. I'm not sure. I don't really understand it myself. Oh, I wonder why we got married. We got married without knowing why. We should have never got married in the first place. You're absolutely right. If that had been the case, you wouldn't have a divorce on your record. But there's no helping it. You chose to marry me because you loved me, didn't you, Susan? So, we just made a wrong choice in life. Let's lead a better life from now on. Thank you for everything. Thank you too. I'll pray not to choose someone like you in the next life. And so we got divorced. I became single, and seeking a fresh start, I changed jobs and moved out of my home state. Engaging with everything with a brand new mindset was, I believe, a particularly good experience for me. Once in a while, I would receive administrative messages from my ex-husband, but we never shared updates about our lives. I suppose we weren't interested. He had his life, and I had my new one beginning. However, after about 10 years of no contact, I received an unexpected call from James. I wondered what it could be about, but never expected him to demand for child support and school fees. James is the child born out of an affair between my ex-husband and another woman. Obviously, I have no obligation to pay. I tried to explain this, but James wouldn't listen at all. Don't you feel ashamed as a mother? If so, you shouldn't have had a kid. Hearing such words repeatedly was irritating. However, if I showed my anger, he would probably refuse to listen to me even more. So I waited for him to calm down a little. After a few minutes, I was finally able to start speaking. Can I say something? First of all, I want to check a few things. How did you get my number to call? Obviously from Dad. Our family has been struggling financially lately. I thought it was strange. Finally, we couldn't afford school fees and such. Thanks to that, I had to start working part-time. Dad told me everything was your fault. That's why he told me about you. You cheated and abandoned me and Dad. You promised to pay but didn't. Until now, I didn't know much about your divorce, but now I understand. You are the one at fault. I see. Now I understand why he is so angry. If this was the truth, of course a child would be angry. However, my ex-husband had lied to James and incited him. Hearing this made my blood boil. It's quite a bother to deal with this after divorce, but I do feel sorry for James, who has been deceived. He may be a stranger to me, but I couldn't just ignore him. Since then, I have remarried and have a child with my current husband. So, as a parent, I thought I should do the minimum for him. I decided to start by telling him the truth. He is 16, old enough for an adult conversation. James, everything I'm about to tell you is the truth. If you want proof, I can even provide a DNA test. Will you listen to me? Uh-huh. I told James that he and I were not parent and child, and that I had divorced his father more than 10 years ago. At first, he refused to believe, but as I continued to reveal the facts, he gradually began to show signs of disturbance. If what you're saying is true, then why did Dad make me call you? James, you mentioned earlier that you've started working part-time. What do you do with the money you earn? Dad keeps it. High school isn't mandatory, so I thought I'd help out if my parents were struggling. Besides, I don't really need a lot of money. You really are a good kid. But haven't you ever wondered? If there's that money, why can't they pay for your school fees? Well, even the cell phone bill is often late. I figure Dad doesn't have any money. Is your dad working? He's working. He goes to the office. I see. I have a bad feeling. Could it be that my ex-husband is dipping into James's money? With that thought, I decided to investigate my ex-husband. James, can you give me about 3 weeks? Huh? Oh, sure, that's fine. And keep the contents from our call today a secret for your dad, okay? Got it. And so I began my investigation of my ex-husband. I hired a private investigator and waited for the results. Some might call me generous for going to such lengths, but I'm doing it all for James. I don't mind if people say I'm crazy for caring so much about someone else's affairs. So what? If a child is about to collapse in front of you, would you ignore it? My answer is no. I don't want to be that kind of person. Besides, I hate my ex-husband more than anything for lying to his son. While harboring my anger towards my ex-husband, I waited for 3 weeks for the PI's report. The results came in. The contents left me in shock. At the same time, anger surged within me. Turns out my ex-husband is not a full-time employee, but a temp worker. But it seems he was recently laid off and is now on leave. Apparently, he's been going to the unemployment office but spending most of his days at the casino. James thought his father was working because he always wore a suit, but he was actually job hunting. And there was no sign of him seriously looking for a job. But the worst part about my ex-husband is that he easily begs his son for money, feigning remorse. That's why James, seeing his dad like that, felt sorry and gave him all his part-time earnings. But in reality, that money was just spent on my ex-husband's casino games and leisure. This is absolutely unacceptable. First, I need to sort out James's life. With that thought, I called my ex-husband's mother. It was fortunate that I hadn't deleted her number. Hello? Oh, Susan! What's up? It's been quite a while. I'm sorry for the long silence, mother-in-law. Could we talk for a bit? I explained the current situation to my mother-in-law. Why did I call my mother-in-law? My ex-husband's mother and her sister are his worst enemies. During our marriage, we rarely visited his family because of that. We had no contact at all after the divorce, but my mother-in-law seemed to think that I had some plans and wasn't angry at all about the divorce. I see. I'm sorry. I thought it'd be better to hear it from him, so I didn't tell you, but he was having an affair. What? Hearing this, my mother-in-law's tone of voice dropped. When I told her all the facts, I could hear her anger on the other side of the phone. Oh, I see. It all makes sense now. The reason I wasn't told about the birth was because the baby was from his affair. He brought James over a few times, but you had just given birth and didn't want to see anyone, so he told us not to contact you. After childbirth, women can become mentally unstable and can even suffer from mental illness. So I respected your wishes and kept quiet. I felt sorry for you when I heard about the divorce, but I couldn't contact you. I see. But I'm happy now because James shows his face every once in a while. He might be a child born out of infidelity, but that's not his fault. So I'm planning to be on his side from here on out. You're such a wonderful grandmother. I feel relieved. Actually, that's why I called. Would you and your husband be able to raise James? Of course. He's been working part-time jobs so diligently, but his father blows all that hard-earned money on slot machines? It looks like I need to give him hell. I'll leave that to you, haha. I just think James is desperately trying to support his father and wasting his future in the process. So I really want him to have a carefree life living with you and your husband. With my mother-in-law determined to raise James, his situation seems resolved. Now it's just about dealing with my ex-husband. I decided to contact him and arrange a meeting for another day. I was still furious about being lied to. When the appointed time came, I met my ex-husband in a coffee shop. His appearance had become ragged compared to before.
Didn't expect to hear from you. You've aged, ha ha ha. Anyway, this is about James, right?
I'm glad you get it. That'll make things quicker. Why do you have him call me?
I've got nothing to lose, haha. I'm seriously broke lately. Got caught doing something shady at my old job and had to quit. James's mom suddenly disappeared, and everything's just been vanishing from my life. But hey, my mom and James still think I'm going to work, haha. It's easy to fool everyone if you just act sorry enough, haha.
James is your son, isn't he? Don't you feel anything?
He's a good son who gives me money. You won't find a more dutiful son anywhere, haha.
Ah, I see. But I'm relieved, since you just said all that in front of them.
Huh?
3 people rose from the seat behind me and came to our table.
What? You're really the worst.
We heard everything. Even at your age, your hopeless character hasn't changed a bit. You're done as a human being. There were my mother-in-law, her sister, and James. It was necessary for everyone to witness his true character firsthand. My ex-husband began to panic hilariously, unable to articulate his words properly. He occasionally glanced at me, seemingly pleading for help. Making that face won't get you anywhere. You need to accept everything you've done and really chew on the fact that you're a beast beyond help. Thus, this chapter came to a close. Since then, my ex-husband has been continually scolded by my mother-in-law, her sister, and my father-in-law, and was forcibly put to work. His job is manual labor, a recommendation from my father-in-law, who said it would help reform his character. Moreover, his salary is deducted as child support, a condition my father-in-law apparently arranged with the company. The money goes to my in-laws, who use it for James's tuition and various school expenses. Meanwhile, James is living with my in-laws. He's completely disgusted with his biological father and has been treating his grandparents kindly. He's such a sweet boy, through and through. Whether the actions I took were right or not, I still don't know. But surely, things are better than before for them. From the bottom of my heart, I wish for James to find happiness. Just as my mother-in-law stated, there are no sins in a child.